So I probably have the better part of a dozen BIOS update videos, and quite frankly, they all get really, really good feedback. People thanking me, it's very easy to follow, and etc. However, there are a few concerns based around updating it via thumb drive, where I've had comments saying, well, it worked for me when it was above 16 gigabytes. Also, I can't find the file after I put it on the thumb drive. It just won't see the file, and etc. So what we're going to do is we'll go through a few theories, and not even theories, but practicality, and we're going to actually format this into different formats. I got a couple of different USB drives. I have a ton of them, but I have a couple here. This one's a lot different. This one's only 16 gigabytes, and this is formatted in a FAT32. This is 256 gigabytes, and it's formatted into NTFS. So we're going to test a few different things out and see what works, what doesn't. Maybe they all will work on this particular machine, but what I want to drive home here is if you have an older motherboard, even a different motherboard, it may not work with that motherboard. So you've got to try different things if it's not working. We're going to run through some of these scenarios, and stay right there. All right, well, like I said, I've got two different thumb drives here. We got my traditional one that I just labeled BIOS on it. This is a 16 gigabyte thumb drive, and it's formatted into FAT32. That's it. That's what I use to do my BIOSes. Now, this one is from Samsung. It doesn't really matter the manufacturer, but this one is a speedy, very speedy drive. It's very fast, and that's what I mean by it. So anyway, this is a 256 gigabyte thumb drive, and it is formatted into NTFS. So I want to see if this thing recognizes mainly this one. I know it'll recognize this one. That's just a hint. But so what I did here is I'm going to get you zoomed in here. Right here I have Cinebench open, and I made a run. And don't get all caught up on the scoring, okay? That is not the purpose of this video. And by the way, I do not have anything tweaked in this BIOS. It is completely stock or default settings. But we are looking at these temperatures, and these temperatures are ranging, from the low 90s to the upper 90s in the CPU temperature range here. So I just wanted to let you know what the temperatures were here and how the PC is reacting to this current BIOS, and maybe it will change with the next one. So one of the ways you can find out what BIOS version you do have is you need to come down here to your search bar, type in run. You can see it's up there, but just type in the letter R, and run should be one of the first, if not the first one. Hit enter, and you can see right down here I have MS Info 32. That's what you're going to type in. This is the easiest way to find out your BIOS version, and you can actually see right here, this is BIOS version and date, and we have 3501. Now you can also see the date right next to it of 419. So that is the date that BIOS came out, and the current version, which is right there. So just remember those numbers. You don't have to save this or anything like that. Just remember it. Now that you have your BIOS version, what you're going to go ahead and do is get on the web, whether it's Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome, anything like that, and now I already have the tab saved, but what you want is your model number of your motherboard. So if it's a B760 or whatever it is, for instance, this one is an Asus Z690, and it is the formula. So what you want to do is start typing that in, and it should be one of the first ones. So if we click on this is mine, and see right there it says Rogue Maximus Z690 formula. Now I did forget the Maximus, just mentioning it to you. But what you do is just type that in verbatim, whatever it says on your motherboard or on your motherboard box. That's what you're going to type in for your Google search, and then one of the first options should take you to the BIOS. Now, up here at the top, you'll see support. That is for the main page. I have said this in almost, I think, every video that I have. Do not click on that one. That's just going to bring you to the support of the actual website. You want the support of your actual motherboard. So when you're in here, you're going to click on, you got tech specs, awards, gallery, and support. You want to click on support. And then you can see right here, we have drivers and utility. So right over here, drivers and utility, go ahead and click on that. And then you'll have drivers and tools, and then BIOS and firmware. So we want the BIOS. Now scroll down, and you can see the current BIOS that it's offering is 3802. Now, the current BIOS that's in the machine is a 3501, as you remember from our last segment there. So we have 3802. Now you can drop this, and also this is a good idea to go back and see if you can find your old BIOS. That way you're really confident you have the right page, because some motherboards actually have versions, so like version 1, version 2, and the BIOSes could be different. So you just need to know what kind of motherboard you have, because sometimes you'll have like the, for instance, it'll say the Rogue Maximus Z690 Formula version 1. It'll just be like a V1 or VER1, something like that. And it should be written on your motherboard and your motherboard box. So just be sure you have the right one. So anyway, we scroll down here, we have 3701, 3603, and look at that, 3501. That is the current BIOS that's in the machine or on the motherboard now. And we are 3 versions behind. You can go ahead and read all these descriptions of what the BIOS, the new BIOS, is actually addressing and fixing any kind of bugs or problems or security updates, etc. So this new BIOS right here, you can see it addresses, the new BIOS includes Intel microcode and adjusts the factory default settings for the non-K processors, enhancing the stability of the Core 13th and 14th gen desktop processor. So it probably is going to have nothing to do with the 12900KS, but nevertheless, this still needs a BIOS update, so we're going to give it to it. And so what we want to do is go ahead and click on this download here. Now it's going to be a little different for MSI, Gigabyte, or ASRock, just where the download button is. Sometimes there's a little cloud, and you just got to click the little arrow down, and that's how you do it. Asus does it this way. Now we can see up here it has downloaded. Now we can get out of there. We can go into our manila envelope, and we can go into our downloads folder. And let me get rid of these. We can see that this is a zip folder. So a zip folder just basically means it's kind of compact and closed with all its contents in it. So you have to extract the files. So what we're going to do is a right click and extract all. You don't need any special programs with Windows 10 or Windows 11. They are built in with this. And where do we want to put, basically select the destination of the extracted folder. If you don't touch it, the destination, the default destination that is right back to the downloads folder. So we're just going to extract. We're not going to change anything. And if we got rid of this, you can see now the downloads folder right there, the same one, has 2 of them. This is the zip file. This is the extracted file. So we want to open that one. And the renamer, okay, this renamer for Asus BIOS updates, this renamer would rename this file automatically if we were to do a BIOS flashback. That means you don't even need a CPU in it. You don't even need RAM in it. You just need a power supply and the actual motherboard. We're not going to do that this time, but that is an option. All we need is this actual file right here. So we're going to go ahead and do this. You can do a right click. You can actually copy it up here if you want. You can do a right click and copy, which is, this is Windows 11. We can copy, or do Control-C on your keyboard. We have 2 thumb drives. Now this is the traditional one, and I'm going to put this one in first and show you what I do with this one. So what you're going to do is reach around to the back of your motherboard and select an empty port. It doesn't have to be USB 3.0 or anything like that. Just almost any port will do. And the one that says US or BIOS update next to the port, if it does say that, just note that is for the BIOS flashback. That does not need to go into that port, even though you can if you want, but it does not need to go into that port for this procedure. We do have an old BIOS in there, which I'm going to delete. And since we copied this one over here, come over to your new the thumb drive that you just plugged in. Actually, before that, I do want to show you the formatting step. So this is, I just labeled it. This is just my thumb drive that I put in, and we're going to go to format. So right click and then format. And then we are going to select the FAT32. That's what we're going to keep it in. It is a 16 gigabyte, like I told you. This is just the way I name stuff. I'm going to do a quick format. Now this is going to format it into that special format that you wanted. And there we go, presto, done. Now we can close that. We can reopen it. And now we can do Control C on your keyboard, or Control V, excuse me, on your keyboard, or right click. And should be a right click. Oh, right here. Paste. Now that's going to paste it into that thumb drive. Now if I remove the thumb drive, you don't need to eject the thumb drive or anything like that, like you used to in the old times. But now we have that file right on here. Now, I am going to take this other one, since I'm not going to shut down the PC again, and we are going to put the file also on this one, because I want to see if it recognizes it. So again, put this in the back of your computer. It's empty. So we are going to, I don't think it'll paste twice. It might. Yep. Okay. So it did paste twice. And so now we have it on this thumb drive also. And again, if I was to format this one, say the SanDisk, go to format, even though I pasted it, I just want to show you, it is formatted into NTFS. So there you go. Get rid of that. And I'm just going to eject it for now, but now we have the two right here, the two thumb drives with the BIOS on it. So another thing that just popped in my head is a couple of comments also revolve around how to get into the BIOS, and not necessarily, I should back up, not how to, the question is not how to get in the BIOS, but the question merely states, well, you can get into the BIOS this way. And I'm like, yeah, you can do it that way. And sometimes it's easier one way, sometimes it's easier the other way. It just depends on your preference, because when I show a BIOS update video, I'll do it one way. But then somebody in the comments will say, well, you could have done it this way. Yep, I could have done it that way. But I'm doing it this way right now. And I show it different ways so people can do it different ways. If I showed one video with every way on how to do it, then I'd be done with all the videos. And since BIOS updates are continuous, you could, or you could just leave it alone if you want, then it's better to show you different ways in different videos and not explain every way in every video. So anyway, I digress a little bit. We'll move on from there. All right, now that we have both the thumb drives ready, we are going to get into the BIOS now. And what way should I do it? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear you, so I have to do it the way I'm going to do it. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go and hit the delete key repeatedly. We have to restart the PC. So restart your PC. And then we have the delete key right here. Now, as the PC is restarting, pretty much as soon as it goes dark or this toilet bowl circle thing starts to disappear, that's when I start spamming the delete key. Now, this is for Asus. There are other manufacturers that are the same, and most of them are, but I think my Gigabyte on my other computer is. But I wanted to show you in real time here of what I'm doing and how I'm getting into it. So I'm not going to cut this. I'm not going to delete any of this. And right now I'm going to start spamming this because that just disappeared. And now we're just waiting for the signal to come back. You don't have to start spamming it here. I just do it so I don't miss it. So hold your comments for when I do it or how I'm doing it. And you can also get into the BIOS another way by going through the troubleshooting and restarting the recovery method that way. Look at that, we're in the BIOS. I understand that was really easy, but sometimes the reboot and your keyboard's not syncing up correctly and you can miss it. I've dealt with it plenty of times. So with that out of the way, again, I digress a little bit, but let's let's get focused on this thing again. So what we're going to do here is, you can see this is the Asus BIOS, and we are going to go under Tools. And then right up here at the top, it says Asus EZ Flash Utility. And we're just going to click on that. And this is a little, I wish they would get a little bit better with this, but it's not as user-friendly. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this thumb drive and actually plug it into the computer. Remember, this one's formatted into FAT32. I'm just going to pick any USB port. Matter of fact, I'll pick my fast ones that are 10 gigabits per second. And look at that, automatically popped up right there. You saw that pop up. So we know that that works. And if we clicked on it, we can see that this is the file. So if we just click on that file, now this is telling you right here, now this is if we were going to go and update the BIOS, which I'm not going to because I want to check the other thumb drive. But this is just telling you if you have a BitLocker, you need to disable it and then update your BIOS, because you could get locked out of your computer or out of your drive or something. So we're going to click no, and I'm going to remove that thumb drive. And I am going to plug this same thumb drive into, excuse me, it's got to focus, into another port. Yeah. Just to see if it's going to read it. And that read it also. So we're going to disconnect that. So we know there's at least a couple ports that works on. All right, now we're going to take our other thumb drive here. This is formatted into NTFS, and this is a 256 gigabyte one. So let's see if this works. Again, the same port as the first one. Okay, it recognized it right there, but doesn't recognize the file. And so we have system volume information, which we don't want, but it looks like we can pick that. Look, we can. Now, I just need to tell you, this might not work with every motherboard, even though it's working with this one. This is a modern motherboard. So if you have an older one, it may or may not work. That's why we're doing this test. Okay, so we're going to come down here to no again. I'm going to try a different port. Let's see. Let's go right into the BIOS port. And look at that. It found it again. All right, that's pretty cool. All right. All right, so let's do another test. On this same one, that's a large one, I formatted this into exFAT. So will this recognize the BIOS? Let's just test it. All right, so that's good so far. And look at that. It actually still recognizes it, and you can still click on it. As silly as this is, I took this one now and turned this one into an NTFS. So let's just see, it's an older stick. It's only 2.0 instead of 3.0, but it is NTFS now. And I put the file back on it on another computer, and let's see if this recognizes it. Okay, so it did recognize it right down here. And it was a little slower, just responding there for a second, but it does look like it will accept it. What did we learn here? So nothing really failed. I haven't updated the BIOS yet. We're going to use the NTFS way to actually update it and see if anything malfunctions that way, but I doubt it's going to. But this is not to say that those other people weren't having problems, but they just probably weren't doing something right. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't have it formatted right, but sometimes you need to try a different USB port. Sometimes you need to format it differently. It just depends on the motherboard and the way the power gets to how it reads in the BIOS mode. It's just that there's a little different variables. We needed to try different things is what I'm kind of getting at. So if you're only trying it one method, one way, and you're not getting any results, there's no sense in, questioning it or commenting that it's not working. You need to try something. Now, I know on MSI, on MSI, the PC needs to reboot to get into the BIOS, where this does not. Well, not into the BIOS, into the M flash. So the PC actually needs to reboot. Other than that, sometimes I have gotten a black screen after the BIOS has updated, so it looks like nothing is happening. If you give it more than 10 minutes, you're safe to reboot the PC and you should be fine. But other than that, let's get back to this and actually update the BIOS. Okay, we're going to take the one that's formatted into NTFS, and we are going to stick it in any port. And we can see that that popped up there. Go ahead and click on that. Click on the file. And go ahead and disable it. Go ahead and disable your BitLocker if you need to. Do you want to read this file? Yes, we do. Do you really want to read this BIOS file? Yes. And now you can see a progress bar right down here at the bottom, which is going to start filling up. And this is when you go, woo, hands-free, right? Don't touch anything, walk away, go call someone that you care about, and nothing else. But don't touch the computer. Look at that. Okay, we are doing our first reboot, as we can see there. And just stick around. It might reboot a few times. Okay, right there at the top, you can see updating the LED firmware. So this is just the process that it took. So during that first reboot, it was a black screen for probably 30 to 40 seconds. So you got to be patient. All right, that was the second reboot, and let's see what happens. Okay, so it only needed 2 reboots. And during those reboots, again, it took about 30 to 45 seconds each, and with nothing going on. But you have to pay attention to your computer. What is the computer doing? Is the fans kicking up, ramping up, stuff like that? Anyway, okay, so right here, before making any adjustments in the BIOS, please press F5 to load the factory default settings to ensure smooth operation. If setting up until RAID, configure, blah, 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 we're not doing it, please press F1 to enter the BIOS. We're not. We're going to do F5. I'm sorry, we have to do F1 just to get into the BIOS, and then F5 is the new, I read in one of the BIOS updates, F5 is now going to put everything, not to optimize defaults, but it's like something else. It's still defaults, but it's weird. So right here, F5, reset to default, or defaults, to reset the BIOS to factory default settings. But right now, I'm just going to cancel that because I want to show you right here, BIOS version 3802, and we have a date of 8/8, so that's August 8th of 2024. And everything else looks pretty good. Excuse me, I'm going to walk across the screen. And now what I'm looking for is advanced, actually extreme tweaker, and Intel default settings. We have on performance, Intel default settings. Yeah. So that's what we want. And right now it's set to disable and force all limits for the multi-core enhancement. So we should, and maybe we'll get better results for the cooling. I don't know, because it doesn't really address the 12900, but let's see what we get. So we're going to do F5, okay. And that's all the same still. So now we're going to do F10 to get out of here. We have not made any changes, that's fine. And now from here, after you clicked OK, it's going to reset the computer again. And now we're going to go into Windows. Sometimes after resetting the BIOS, it can take, and the BIOS update, it can take a couple more resets, which it did. It took 2 to now get into Windows. So right now you can see that we are getting back into Windows, which is great. All right, we're just going to let this sit for a minute, let it load all of its drivers and settle down a little bit. Then we're going to open up the Cinebench and get that rolling. All right, so I just reset all the core temperatures in here, and right now we're in the low 50s to upper 40s, and that's where it likes to sit. It is a little bit warmer in this room. I need to point that out, but nevertheless, we're going to get this started here, and we want to do, let's do advanced. Oh, we're on advanced, that's right. And just a 10-minute thing. We're going to start the multi-core test. And I want to just see if anything changed, which it didn't. Oh my gosh, it got ridiculously hot. Holy cow, Batman. I mean, it jumped right up to 100C. This is worse with a BIOS update. All right, well, unfortunately, we need to stop the video here because the PC is experiencing some overheating problems, and it's not due to the BIOS settings. I just want to make that clear. What's happening here is I've gone in, I've stopped the recording for a while, and I wanted to figure something out off camera. But what's going on here is it looks like the course or the IQ software. Now, I have many fans that are running off of IQ software, being these three on the top, these three on the side, and the one on the back. And I have, you know, RGB lights and the RAM. That's all working off the IQ software. But the problem is I go in there and I go under cooling, and it will tell me I can go from like a quiet setting, a balance, or extreme, or custom settings for the fan curve, right? So you can customize a fan curve if you want. But as soon as I click on it, and I would see it disappear. Just the cooling portion completely disappears. So then I realized there's some software updates, so I updated that. That did not help, so I'm kind of stuck in this. I have to figure out what's going on right now. I loaded Armory Create. I want to see what's going on with the pump, see if the pump is keeping up, because it sounds like the pump is going on and off, but sometimes there can be conflicts between software. So if there's something going on between Armory Create and the IQ software, then I need to figure that out. Maybe I need to address those issues. So I need to figure that out, and maybe I may make a video on it or fix it and then make a video on it, but I'm not sure yet because this does take a lot of time. So it's not like a very fast video that I could make. But I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent right there, but I needed to let you know what's going on here. The BIOS update had no effect on what's going on now. It just so happened to bring itself to my attention at the time of this video. So anyway, take care. Don't forget to subscribe and leave your comments down below in regards to the BIOS update. Nothing to do with the overheating issue right now. That's a totally separate issue again. But give this thing a thumbs up if you wouldn't mind. And until next time, guys, take care.